Hey everyone, it's Craig Campbell with Pastor Craig's Vintage Cards, and today we're taking another deep dive in the 1956 top set, looking at Jim King, an outfielder with the Chicago Cubs. And nice crisp card here in really nice shape. Corners are really nice, and there's no creases. The card's just a really nice card. But yeah, Jim King, and there's not a whole lot really going on in this picture here of this 1956. You can see that it looks like they're just kind of warming up, and it just shows them getting ready to catch a ball, and he's got good form because he's got two hands. And if you look, he's got a nice smile on his face, and looks like over here in his cheek, he may have a wad of tobacco. Maybe I don't know for sure, but I'm trying to think of that stadium. I don't know if that's the Polo Grounds. Somebody may know. That may be the Polo Grounds, possibly. Um, that's portrayed back there. But yeah, Jim King, an outfielder for the Chicago Cubs. You can see he was 6 feet tall, 185 pounds. He's from Arkansas. He bats left, but he throws right, and born in 1932. So let's take a look at Jim King and his baseball story. Kind of an interesting career for him. He was a strong-armed, left-handed batting outfielder, and he hit for power. Although he never had more than 511 plate appearances a season, he reached double figures in home runs 8 times, topping out at 24 home runs in 1963. He was born in Elkins, Arkansas. He was the youngest son of Elmer and Mary. He was one of 6 brothers and 2 sisters, so uh, he was one of 8 kids in Arkansas. When he was a teenager, it says King went to live with one of his older brothers, and he dropped out of school before he reached high school. He was a very talented player, already evident at the age of 14 when he started playing against much older kids, and he was noticed for his arm strength that was recognized. He played American Legion baseball in his mid-teens, and he played for several highly skilled teams in the Elkins, Arkansas area, which attracted the attention of a Cardinals scout. He persuaded the 17-year-old to play for the Vernon, Texas, in the independent Class D Longhorn League. Now, this is really interesting here. On September 2nd of 1954, an Omaha television station gave away a reported 26,000 tickets to a pregame promotion that featured Joe DiMaggio and Dizzy Dean. The advance advertising said that Dean would pitch to DiMaggio and to Omaha's King. But Dean, in his street clothes, threw about 15 pitches just to the retired Yankee Clipper, to Joe DiMaggio. None of the balls that DiMaggio hit left the park. He did homer off of a batting practice pitcher, though. Joe DiMaggio did. King, he had his photo taken with the 2 Hall of Famers, and then he homered during the scheduled game. There was a crowd of 18,284 people who showed up at the ballpark to see Dizzy Dean, Joe DiMaggio, and then Jim King hit a home run during the game. Now, the Cubs, they selected King in the minor league draft of November 1954, and he was considered to be one of the 6 potential outfielders who could make the team in 1955, and that's what he did. He made the team in 1955. He saw considerable playing time over his 2 seasons in Chicago, hitting .256 in 113 games, and he made 333 plate appearances in 1955. He hit the first of his 11 home runs at the Polo Grounds. And it says here he received far more votes for the All-Star team than did Roberto Clemente. King received 82,000 All-Star votes, and Roberto Clemente received 46,000. And the future Hall of Famer and Jim King were the top finishers in the out of the money for the rookie All-Star team. So Jim King and Roberto Clemente were the top 2 finishers out of the money, I guess, for the rookie All-Star team. Now, King followed his rookie year with 15 homers in 1956 when he batted .249. And he battled some shoulder injuries that flared up again in 1955 and then 56. And the Cubs, they traded him to St. Louis in 1957. But St. Louis never really did use him very much, and he was on the bench for most of that season in 1958 and 57. And in April 2nd, the Cardinals traded him to the San Francisco Giants for catcher Ray Cott. And King said, I thought I would do better at playing in San Francisco. And in 1958, after that season, he had no more major league offers. And so King went to spring training with the Toronto team in 1959. He played there all season. And him and his wife and his kids, they moved to Toronto. They liked it very much up there. He remained in Toronto for the whole 1960 season as well. And he was named the league's most valuable player in that league up in Toronto. And then Cleveland, the Cleveland Indians acquired King for Toronto, but then he never did play for Cleveland at all. But he was selected by the Washington Senators in the expansion draft in the American League. And so Jim King went off to the Washington Senators. And he made the team right out of spring training. And he finished the season hitting .270. And he had a decent season with them. In the 1962 season, he played left field regularly. And this is interesting for a power hitter. 3 years in a row, he walked more than he struck out. And so he had really good plate discipline. And for his career, he walked 363 times, and he only struck out 401 times in 3,338 plate appearances. I mean, we have guys now in the major leagues that strike out 200 times a year in 300 plate appearances. So he was a very disciplined hitter that didn't strike out a lot. And the Senators were just a terrible, terrible team. In 1963, that was a low point. They lost 106 games. Gil Hodges was the manager for them. And but still, King was hitting home runs, and he had a powerful arm, and he was kind of one of the thrills for the diehard Senator fans. They really did enjoy him. And as he approached 20 home runs, it was going to become, I think, one of the team's records. And he played okay, but then in 63, he finished the season batting at .231 and just did not have a very good season at all. The Senators were just not very good in 64 again. But one of the highlights of his career in Boston, he hit for the cycle. And what's interesting is that he tripled in his final at bat. And the triple is the hardest one to hit for the cycle. And on top of that, this was his lone triple for the season. So he had one triple for the year, and it was actually his last hit as he hit for the cycle because he was not very fast. And 2 weeks later, on June 8th, he hit 3 home runs against Kansas City. They were all solo shots, but the Washington Nationals lost 5-4. It's interesting that after he retired, he never went to any other baseball game ever again. And he was invited to many, many faraway old-timer games, but his problem was he just was terrified to fly. His kid remembers that when his dad would get home from a road trip from flying, that he would just be drenched in sweat because he just was just terribly, terribly afraid to fly. And he was traded from the Washington Senators, and it was really kind of heartbreaking. He got traded in 1967 to the White Sox, and he was crushed. He took it hard. He said, I don't want to leave Washington. A tearful Jim King told Gil Hodges, we love Washington. We love the people. We love the park. The guys on the club. His family was well entrenched in Washington. They just did not want to leave, but he left, and he said he just loved playing for Gil Hodges. He thought the world of Gil Hodges, and he was really just so sad when he left there. And he had little success when he went to Chicago. And he was traded then from Chicago to Cleveland in a deal that brought Rocky Colavito to the White Sox. And then he was released by the Indians after the 1967 season. He said he called it quits then, and he was disappointed at how it ended because he really went out on a low note after being traded away from Washington. He said he broke his hand that last year, and he just didn't get enough playing times, and things just started to go really bad. He said he knew it was time to get out. He said he missed everything about his major league career except for air travel. He said, I never once relaxed on an airplane. And that's interesting because he said in a 1976 interview, I've never gone to see a big league game in person because of that fear of flying. And this is what's really interesting, just a whole different era. for these players. Now, when he got retired from baseball, he took a local job at the telephone company, and he remained there for 24 years. He worked as a lineman on the telephone company and later as a foreman on a crew that was laying underground wires for the telephone company. And nowadays people retire from baseball and they're really set for the rest of their life. But here, Jim King, he went and worked for the telephone company for 24 years as a foreman, as a lineman, working hard. And this was after many, many years in baseball. And they said he was one of the hardest working persons that there was. And for his major league career, he had 2,918 at-bats. So almost 3,000 at-bats. And he had a 240 average. He had 699 hits, one hit shy of 700. He hit 117 home runs with 401 RBIs. He played for the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Giants, the Senators, Cleveland, and Chicago. And this is his rookie card. He had cards in the 1956 through 1958 tops, and then he had cards in the 1961 through the 1967 tops. And again, here's Jim King, a guy that played for just a really bad Washington Senator team, but really, really loved it, and loved his manager, Gil Hodges. Loved playing baseball, but was just terrified of flying. But again, this is a person that is the backbone of baseball. And it's a common card that we just look at the checklist and we have the card number and we put them in our binder to fill the set. But Jim King had a nice, pretty long baseball career, and almost 700 hits, over 400 RBIs. He traveled around quite a bit, but just an interesting story. And I just really enjoyed doing this background, this deep dive look at Jim King. And again, this is his rookie card. And so I'm just thankful for Jim King and for his baseball career. And I'm just glad to have him in my collection. All right, guys, I hope you enjoy these deep dives on these 1956 tops. I sure do. I like to learn more about the person than just the cardboard. And I like to learn about the particulars of their career. It just makes the hobby more interesting to me. And it gets me to spend time with the cards, and instead of just buying a card, put in a binder, and never look at it again. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please leave a comment. And again, everybody, enjoy the hobby. Keep on collecting. Have a great day.